talk about is what I call 5 handles to not only get through the summer, but also get through life. Some things I've learned that have helped me to kind of find in the midst of life a lot of joy, a lot of peace, and a lot of love. That's what Josiah was saying last week. That's what we think this is what I want. But what you ultimately really want is you want love in your life. You really want joy and you want peace. And that's kind of like, how do we find these handles? And unfortunately, it doesn't always come the way we'd like. We think we could just sort of go on Amazon and buy something. During training, some of you were in my session when I talked about, by the way, I have this little pill, and if you take it, you'll have all the energy you need every day for camp. I remember when I first did it, one person raised their hand and goes, "Is that legal?" And I really don't have a pill, because what it is, it's hard work. It's going to bed on time. It's eating right. It's all these tough things to do. That's how you find the energy. But there are things we can do to be successful in kind of climbing that wall of the summer, but it's not always easy. There was this girl. This isn't anybody here. Her name is Michelle, and she wrote a text to a guy named John, and she said, "Dear John, I can't see you anymore. Every time I see you, I just hurt. I'm not going to allow you to hurt me anymore. So this is goodbye." And so John wrote back to her and he says, "It was one sit-up. I had you do one sit-up," because John was her personal trainer. And so, it's, and I know this girl a little bit because I go to the gym, believe it or not, that's in my non-summer life. And I know there's this trainer there and this girl, and he goes, "You can do it again." And she literally screams. She goes, "I can't do it." And I'm very entertaining. I always try to get the piece of equipment next to her so I can watch it. And the gym actually put up a sign, "No more loud screams." They really did. They put up a sign, "No screams," because but she kept coming back. So I admired her for continuing to come to the gym. And so, one of the missions of camp, as you'll hear me say, is we want to use the camp experience and all its pain and all its glory to build great people. And so what are some things we can do? What are 5 handles that we can learn to do? So I'll go over those first. The first one is let it go. So what do I mean by let it go? We want you to not have a bad yesterday. Hold on to making a great day tomorrow. And whenever I think about let it go, I love little movie clips. So this is we're going to try this, a little clip from an old movie, if anyone's ever heard of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I honestly, whenever I think about letting something go, I think of this movie clip, so I thought I'd have to play it for you.
We have got it! Come on!
Elsa, don't move!
It's ours, Indy. Yours and mine.
Elsa, don't cross the seal. The knight warned us not to take the grail from here. Elsa, give me your other hand, honey. I can't hold you.
I can reach it. I can reach it.
Elsa, give me your hand. Give me your other hand. Elsa! Junior, give me your other hand. I can't hold on.
I can get it. I can almost reach it, Dad.
Indiana?
Let it go.
Anyone ever seen Raiders of the Lost Ark? Or you guys, anyone raise your hand? Oh, a couple of you people. It's an old movie. But obviously, if he had tried to not let it go. Like if you just she obviously wouldn't let it go. She had to keep reaching for that thing. And so when I thought about what do we need to let go, there's two things that came to my mind. And those are the if onlys and the what abouts. So it's kind of like the regrets of our past. If only I'd done this, if only this had happened. And then the fear of the future. What about this? What's going to happen? Some of you may already be thinking about that. What's going to happen after camp? What are abouts? And I think one of the handles of being successful in our life and our relationships is learning what we should hold on to and never give up, and what we need to let go of. I have these two stools here, right here, and this represents our kind of what we thought should happen in life. This first stool is like, this is our expectation right here, and then this is what actually happened. And this morning, to give you an example, and this happens every day of our life. I saw it happen to someone yesterday. They expected to get turkey sandwiches, but they got ham sandwiches. Anyone ever have that happen to you? A couple people. Yeah, sometimes it happens. We're doing our best. And so you expected one thing to happen. Here, this little stool here represents what you expect to have happen. And over here is what actually happens. The problem is there's a gap. Many times there's a gap. This morning, I brought this here because this morning I went to my mailbox, and this little package is in my mailbox. And I always think the best. I go, oh, Carmen must have sent me a package, a present. And it was from some island in the South Pacific. And then when I opened it, I realized that I had ordered from Amazon one of these. It's something, I like it because I don't like cleaning up things, and when you put something in the microwave, you put this over it so it doesn't splatter. And so I have one for here, and I wanted one for the house over at Rutherford. But this is what came in. So I'm not sure. It looked in the picture to be the same size as this one. So this is kind of what I expected, and this was my reality. I'm not sure. I think it might cover like one egg or something, but that's what I expected. That's what I got. And so, of course, we're talking about Camp Sonshine here. And so when you come to camp, you have all these expectations. You remember, we're going to talk about that chart again in a little bit, but, here was our reality. We got accepted to camp. Here's what we expected. But then all of a sudden, it rains all day. You didn't know you're going to get stuck in a building all day at camp. You kind of pictured sunshiny skies and hanging out on a lounge chair maybe. I don't know. But then you have this reality. And then there's this gap. It's this gap. And what do we do with this gap? But when we learn as men and women how to deal with this gap, we learn how to love well, we learn how to lead well, we learn how to really, this whole space right here, this gap between what we expect and what we actually get, is where we learn to make choices that help us to be successful in this whole business of life. And, even in relationships, a lot of times I see this because I've done a lot of marriage counseling. I've led a lot of marriage groups over the last 30 years. And I talk to couples, and I've had friends, and when they got married, I've been there when they get married, and they have all these hopes and dreams about what their marriage is going to be like. And then I've walked through their marriage with them over the years, and they end up getting divorced. Very close friends of mine, a close friend of mine that I've been with for many years, he's in the middle of a divorce right now. And so what happens? What happens? Why do these famous people that you'd think have everything, they get married 3-4 times? I was reading about Nicolas Cage today. He's on his 5th marriage. Why does that happen? I don't want to mention more names, but you could think that you hear these people that get married again and again. And it's because they have this expectation. This is what's going to happen right here, but they can't figure out this gap between when they found out what's reality over here, and it's hard. It's hard when we have to deal with that gap, and so, but some of the things we're going to talk about tonight are going to help us kind of make that gap work for us and not work against us, how to make the right choices. And so one of the things with that is not to make comparisons. Anybody here ever struggle with comparing? Like sometimes, you don't, because a lot of times what other people think of you is none of your business, right? But it's easy to compare, how am I doing compared to this person? But in reality, the life is, because we can compare, well, this person has this, and you've heard it said, I'm sure, 1,000 times, that we look at other people's highlight reels on their Instagram or their Facebook. They don't put all the struggles and the troubles, but they put in there, kind of like the best moments. And we see like, oh, my life is so, horrible compared to what I see them having. And we get into this kind of comparison thing. And that's one of those handles of life. We start, even at camp, you go, well, I'm not as good with the kids as that person is, or blah, blah, blah. It doesn't work for you. You know, when you think about a camp, that's why you don't want to let a difficult today ruin a great tomorrow. You got to learn to let it go. You know, don't fall like that blonde did down the little gap of despair and discouragement, and she probably just died, I imagine, when she hit the bottom. So you don't want that to happen to you. You don't want to get stuck in this gap. You don't want to get into that comparison trap. So because really, I read a great book, and it said that the way we think changes our life. You know, because a lot of times what we do is we believe our own thoughts, and that's not a good thing. This is a very important thing to remember. You are not your thoughts. You have thoughts, but you're not your thoughts. And the way you think can change everything. So I have this little fish up here that I really like. Have you ever seen this poster? Mindset is everything. So he was, you know, so this little fish, you know, he doesn't compare himself to others. He doesn't compare himself to sharks, but he's going to use the fins of sharks. He's going to think about, you know, what does his mindset need to be? And I got this letter. We're part of congratulations, you're part of Camp Sonshine. You're part of the American Camping Association group of camps. There's actually probably 8,000, 10,000 camps in the U.S. 2,400 of those camps have gone through an accreditation process with the American Camping Association. It's a very stringent. They come in our grounds, and they go through everything. They go through our handbooks, our operating manuals. They go through a lot of what we do sometimes is because of ACA. And so it becomes like this little group of camps that we get together, and we talk about how can we be the best camps. And they just sent a letter out, and I thought it was interesting. And they said, you should read this to your staff. So I said I would read it to our staff. And so this is the June 2023 issue. I don't know if you can see this picture. It's a cute little girl with a butterfly. And it said, and the article was on how to get the most out of your summer to your counselors. And it's long. I'm not going to read like a couple sentences of it. But I think it's helpful when we talk about mindset, we talk about being here at camp. And she said, there's going to come a day. This is actually written by a camp director. She's been a camp director since 1989 of a camp called Golden Arrow Camp. And she said to all the counselors, there's going to come a day this summer when you're going to think about quitting. Maybe you're even in that place right now. Maybe you're second guessing your decision to work at camp this summer. Like anything new, there's always an adjustment period as you find your groove and your people. Almost everyone at camps, including your leaders, have had days or maybe even a week where they felt like throwing in the towel. Ask them and they'll tell you stories about some of their worst days at camp. I can tell you some of those. And that is true. Even after 42 years of camp, I guarantee you this summer, there'll become days when I go, I don't think I can do this. It just happens. It's just part. And she said, the reason is, people don't always know this, but being a camp counselor is one of the hardest jobs in the world. Some of you may agree with that. Anyone think that might be hard? And people don't realize that sometimes when they take camps. That's that whole expectation and reality. And so she goes on to say that you may not understand that the camp counselor job is one of the hardest jobs you'll ever have. She goes, most camp counselors in the USA, and I guess other camps maybe, but she's talking to the USA camps, says feel overwhelmed. Camp counselors feel discouraged. They feel exhausted. It's important for all of you camp counselors to know, as she's writing this, to know that every camp counselor in every camp feels that way at some point during the summer. So you're not alone. You're in good company if you feel like this might be hard. She goes, however, it doesn't stop there. You don't have to kind of get stuck in that. This is the hardest job ever. I don't know if I can do this. I feel overwhelmed, discouraged. I feel exhausted. She says, if you're willing to work through those hard emotions, your job as a counselor has the potential to be the most rewarding experience you've ever had in your life. She said those first 2 to 3 weeks are going to be the tough times. It's a time of adjustment. However, we want to know that if you don't give up, you will live with no regrets. And then she goes on. I won't read all those things. And she gives you some tips, and we can talk a little bit about those. But I guess when we talk about expectations as a reality, that's true for your camp job. It's true in relationships. If you talk about relationships, probably a lot of you aren't thinking, I can't wait till one day I can be the right person for somebody else. To be honest, most people go, I can't wait until I find the right person. How many people think people go more like, I can't wait to find the right person? You think maybe that might be what people do? How many people think one day I can be the right person? Do most people focus on that? You do? Look, that's the man to marry, girls, right there. He wants to be the right man for you. Because we're naturally wired. We have this, if you've ever listened to the radio anymore, you have to tune into the station. And the station we all tune into is WIFM. And that stands for What's in It for Me. And it's somehow, that's what we tune in. What's in this for me? It's because it's kind of all about me. And, I was talking to the leadership today, and I said there's different types of leaders. Some do it because they think it's cool to be a leader. But other people say, I'm going to be a leader because I want to give out more than I give in. The economics of being a leader is never good. You always give out more than you get back on the practical level. But at the end of the day, you know what? This is what's true. I'm going to move this because I could hurt it. The end of the day, I guarantee this is true, that the people that figure out how to give and not be takers in this life, at the end of the day, the people that say that I want to put more into life than I'm trying to take back, they're the ones somehow, I don't get it, but they're the ones that live lives of love. They're the ones that live lives of joy. They're the ones that live lives of peace. The people that are going, it's about me, I'm just tuning in, what can I get? It's all about me. They live lives eventually of frustration. I see them live lives. I see counselors end the summer discouraged, overwhelmed. People say, I'm just going to throw myself into this. I'm going to serve. I'm going to love like I've never loved before. I'm going to give. If there's a job to do, I'm going to do it. And they sacrifice at the end of the summer. I see them like they've grown so much. And they want to come back next summer because they've had this amazing experience of feeling like what it feels like to love as Jesus said we have to love, to give. Jesus said this amazing thing. He says, if you lose your life for my sake, that's how you find it. It's kind of like this crazy little paradox. I don't always get that. But those are also the happiest couples. If I do a lot of, since I do the marriage counseling, I talk to marriage and say, what are the happiest couples I know? What do they know? What they know is they're not there for each other. They're not there to serve themselves. What can that person do for me? They are always trying to outgive the other person. They're always trying to look for ways to serve their spouse. And they end up being the happiest couples. Now, does that make sense? I don't know. But it's what works. I guarantee you talk to happy couples, they're not saying, well, what makes us happy is we're out for ourselves. We're out to see what we can get, what we can do for ourselves. I want to see what my wife can do for me. And that's why we're so happy, because we're each out tuning in for ourselves. But when you see a couple and they're there to serve and outserve each other, something happens in that relationship. And it's magical. And those two live a life of love, of joy and peace. And to me, there's what we want, but then there's what we really want. And I think that's what we really want, is to live a life of love and of joy and peace. So, think about what my little friend here from ACA says, and consider it. She said that she was running a marathon, and she said she ran this marathon before she wrote this article. She kind of laid exhausted on the ground. There's a person next to her, and he looked over and says, you may not remember me, but 8 years ago, he goes, I was at your camp as one of your camp counselors, and he goes, about 3 weeks in, I quit. I told you I was homesick and I had a family issue. He goes, I was lying. I just wanted to go home. It was just too hard for me. And he says, and I've regretted it ever since. He goes, if I could do it again, I'd go back. And she said that's kind of what inspired her to write this article for us to read to the camp counselors, because she said, I don't want to see other people live a life of regret. I want them to make decisions that they won't regret later. And it is a mindset. And I think one of the things we need to let go of is that it's not okay to ask for help. During training, it probably didn't make much sense to you then, but we had that little chart we threw up. So here we are, the growth moment. So this is when ACA sent this out. They said, this is an important chart. And when I get together with other camp directors, even at the international recruiting fairs, we talk about this. This is what other camp directors talk about. We go, how do we help counselors walk through this? Because they get accepted at camp, and they're all in this honeymoon phase. They're super excited about camp. They know this is going to be the fulfillment, But the problem is, sometimes when we not always happy in our lives, we try to do these things called geographical cures. We think if we go somewhere else, we're going to feel a lot better about life. But the problem with that is this. You take yourself with you when you go to the new place. Does that make sense? And because you take yourself with you, if you're unhappy in one place, you're not going to be happy in another place. It's just how it works. Or sometimes maybe you're kind of in a nice, comfortable place, but sometimes you're either in a problem, getting out of a problem, or getting ready to go into another problem, because that's sort of how life goes eventually. So you're in this kind of honeymoon phase. Yes, I'm excited. Woohoo! I love it. And then reality hits. Bam! You're far from home. Food's different. It's hot. Well, it's not been hot. We should say it's rainy. Last year it was hot. This year it's been rainy. You have to wake up early. You're unsure about the position. You're living with a lot of people. Some of them are nice. Some are not so nice. But reality hits in. Then there's doubt and loss. The challenges, relationships, food, living situations, your jobs. You're having to do all these things you're not happy about. Maybe you're worried about the future. And then there's that growth moment. You hit that wall we're talking about. Boom, there's that little growth moment. And you have to decide, what are we going to do? And what if all these studies, ACA pays for all these studies to say, well, what can we do to tell counselors? They go, well, it's pretty simple. They either adjust and adapt, and it's their thoughts. They have to have people help them, and they can grow. That's a little green tree. Or they can just kind of get stuck. They get regretted they ever came. They get frustrated. They give up. And then they come this little dead tree. So, but we're here to help you with that. And the important thing is what I believe is to make the faith choice. So if you can just go to that little faith choice poster. There we go. Josiah told his story last week because I would think making the right choice isn't something, again, we know you're all on different parts of your faith journey, but for me, making the faith choice, between this gap, that's how I can manage this place and from a place of love and find peace and joy in the midst of a gap between what I thought should happen and what actually happened. Because I can guarantee you, the reason you're not happy, I know the reason, 100%. It's because you're not getting what you want. That's why you're not happy. That's why you get frustrated. So what do you got to do with that? And that's where you need help. And that's where we make the faith choice. God, are you helping me out here? Are you not? And when Josiah was talking about his accident last week, I was remembering my side of the story. And one night we were in the hospital room, and it was about 1 o'clock, and Carmen had gone home because we thought everything was okay. And all of a sudden in the room, all these monitors started going, beeping, and you never want the monitors to keep going beeping louder and louder. And they came in, and they told me that Josiah was having internal bleeding, or there's something going inside. And this is like 2 a.m. And they said that if they didn't do emergency surgery, he could die that night. And so I thought, wow, and so I talked to Josiah. I said, what do you think we should do? And he goes, let's go for it. And so the doctor actually, he'd worked all day. He got up early in the morning, and he'd worked all day until like 10 o'clock. He'd just gone home from his shift. But he was the only one that could do that surgery. But they called the doctor back in. I remember telling him, I said, you've been up like 14 hours. Are you ready to do another 3-hour surgery? Are you sure this is my son we're talking about? I mean, this isn't, this is real life. And he said, if we don't do this, he could die by morning. They said, we got to do the surgery tonight. And I'll never forget that moment. And they wheeled Josiah off, and Josiah, he had much more faith than I did. He's like, and so they said, but if we get in there, we don't know what we're going to find, if this is going to work. And so I remember just sitting down, and this is like 3 a.m, and there was no one else in the hospital. And just sitting there on the edge of my bed, and it hit me, my son could die that night. And I thought, do I believe what I say I believe? Do I believe that God is in control? That there is a God that can help be with me? Is he in this room with me? Is that what I believe, or don't I believe? And I just remember the little monitors going beep, beep, and it's just there, and I'm just sitting there. And I said, God, you got to help me here. And I just had a peace, and I just knew that God said everything's going to be okay. And I had a peace that really, the Bible talks about a peace that passes understanding. That's what God can give you if you're open to it. We can help you find that. And that's what I found at that moment. I think in the natural, I wouldn't have been able to find that peace because my son may not come back alive. But I found that peace. And it was a couple hours later. It was probably the longest night of my life, like 5 a.m. They wheeled him back, and they said, we don't know what happened. We went in there. All the charts showed this happening. We went in there, and it was all fine. And they said, and he's going to be fine. He's going to make it. And he did. Look, he's back there. And, but yeah. So that's the other side of the story. But what I was obviously the most excited that my son was okay. But also, as I walked away from that moment, it was a really, really tough time for me to look at my faith and say, do I believe what I say I believe? And I made the faith choice. And that's how I survived, because I didn't think that should be part of my life, of having my son go through this. I expect our life to kind of be happy and healthy. And this is what was happening. My son might be dying. But I honestly found love and joy and peace in the midst of that. I found that gap. I stood right here in this gap and found it. And that's what I want for you. I want you, when you hit those walls, and that's what I'm saying, these are handles not just for the summer, but for the rest of your life. I always am so appreciative of people that write me after camp, and they say, the experiences of camp, some of the challenges I faced, and I faced them and I went through them, they helped me prepare me for what was in my future. I had no idea what I was going to face after camp, because I stood strong. And God did something in my life. I let God do something in my life. I was able to face those challenges. And sometimes we can either go through it or we can grow through it. And I think I challenge you to learn how to take that growth moment and grow through it. Make the faith choice. Learn what to let go. Don't compare yourself to others. Learn what your thoughts. You're not your thoughts. Change your thinking. Change your life. Learn to make the faith choice and see what God can do in your life. And know that we're here to help you. We want to walk through with you. We believe in you. We believe that God has you here for a purpose and a reason. And is it hard? Yes. Is it difficult? Absolutely. But do we believe it's the best use of your time and life this summer? Most assuredly. And we'll help you through that. All right. Thank you. And yes.